This summer saw a major change to how transfers are made in Scotland. Back in February, it was announced that a new loan system would be in place called a cooperation agreement, which sees young players move between clubs freely. It was also announced there would be a major revamp of the Challenge Cup. Again. This was in response to concerns with the lack of minutes young players have been getting in the Scottish Premiership, but there has been some controversy over these changes. So in this video I'll be having a look into the new Challenge Cup format, how the cooperation agreement works, and whether or not these changes, along with other plans by the SFA, will bring the change needed to develop young players at a top level. Let's start with the Challenge Cup then. The Challenge Cup has been around since the 1990-91 season, but it started off as a one-off tournament to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Scottish Football League. It proved to be popular, so stuck around as a tournament for Football League teams competing below the top flight, aside from the 1998-99 season because there was no sponsor. 2010 saw the two highest placed Highland teams invited to the competition to make it a nice round 32 team competition. This was changed in 2013 to only one spot, with the other going to the winner of a preliminary round game between an East of Scotland and South of Scotland League side, but this would only last a year as we would soon have the Lowland League taking that spot. This would be expanded in 2016 to include 4 teams from both the Highland and Lowland League, along with the rather interesting addition of 2 sides from Northern Ireland and Wales, with it being the 2 highest non-European qualifying sides who made it. There is also the controversial addition of Premiership under-20 sides, which many fans from lower league clubs haven't exactly been a fan of. 2017 would see 2 teams from the Republic of Ireland join the competition, and 2018 would see the tournament reach its largest size with 2 clubs from England's National League joining in. 2018-19 would see Bohemians bring about a problem that really should have been noticed when the Irish teams were brought in. They were supposed to play against East Fife in the quarter-final, but the game was scheduled for the 17th of November, which is about 2 weeks after the end of the Irish League season. They then moved the game to the 2nd of February, but just 7 minutes before kick-off, the game was postponed due to a frozen pitch. Bohemians subsequently withdrew from the competition, but at least those East Fife fans who travelled got a night out in Dublin, I suppose. I should say, I have no idea if Dublin is good for a night out. I haven't been yet, so it could be terrible for all I know. The 2019-20 season was meant to have a final between Raith and Inverness, but COVID came along and it was postponed before eventually being cancelled. It officially goes down as a shared title, so Raith did the COVID double of being handed the league and cup due to COVID. Thank you, China. Glory to the CCP. Due to travel restrictions, the tournament in 2021-22 would become an all-Scottish affair once again, with the final actually getting to be played this time, with Raith winning the tournament on the pits, thanks to a double from Matej Poplatnik. If you were a Raith Rovers fan on Twitter at this time, you would know I was especially happy about this. 2022-23 would see the foreign clubs return, but only from Wales and Northern Ireland. 2023-24 would be the final instance of foreign clubs entering the competition, with the New Saints following in Connor's key steps by making the final, but they would be defeated by Airdrie. 2024-25 would be all Scottish once again, but with 6 teams from the Lowland League and 5 teams from the Highland League, but there was a bit of a controversy of the teams selected. The Highland League sides were those who finished 1st to 5th, which makes perfect sense. The Lowland League sides included Albion Rovers, Cowden Beef, Berwick Rangers and East Stirlingshire, sides who did not finish in the top 6, or top 8 seeing as Celtic and Hearts have B teams in the Lowland League and they would be in there anyway. So Lowland League clubs complained about the selection because those that have just been mentioned are all former SPFL clubs. What a strange coincidence that is. In February 2025 it was announced the competition would be seeing a new format. The previous format was a regular knockout competition, although the first 2 rounds were regionalised. The new format, however, sees a league phase format. Yes, as in the same format we see for UEFA competitions now, with the teams once again reduced to just lower league SPFL clubs and still the B teams. But let's just say the new format has not proven to be popular. As a lower league fan and someone who consequently has a vested interest in what other lower league fans have to say, nobody cares about games involving B teams. These games always see much lower attendances, and match day 1 was no different. Stenhousemuir versus Rangers B saw 164 people turn up at Ochil View, whilst Edinburgh City against Kilmarnock B saw an official attendance of 86. Yes, you heard that correctly. 86. I didn't miss a 100 or 200 before it. Also, of the 10 B teams, only 2 avoided defeat, and in previous years, only Celtic and Rangers B have made any sort of impact in the competition, which is to be expected when you consider they're the only ones who can afford to have a B team with any sort of quality. There is also the additional stress on players which part-time teams would like to avoid, and we saw this with Hamilton changing their entire first 11 from the previous Saturday's game. I know Hamilton are not part-time yet, but it does show how much value these games against B teams hold for senior clubs where they themselves end up playing their reserves. So, why was this change to the Challenge Cup made? Well, it comes down to the SFA transitory report that was released in May 2024, which is a study the SFA made about how to improve the progress of youth players at a top level. The full thing is 114 pages filled with data and stuff, but to summarise, having a strong pathway from youth teams to first teams yields results both on the pitch and off the pitch. It allows young prospects a chance to improve the team, leading to better results, and if they do well enough, can be sold off to a top 5 league club for a decent sum of money that can be reinvested in the next generation. Scottish Premiership clubs currently do a terrible job of this, as they give less minutes to players under 20 than the English Premier League, and this trend continues for under 23 players as well. In total, 16 issues are listed in this report, with the most prevalent ones being gap between under-18s and first team, size of the leagues, facilities, and pressure on managers. When it came to the gap between under-18s and first team football, the complaints listed are how games aren't played in stadiums, larger benches mean lack of senior reserves, games cancelled at short notice, and some teams not even having the resources for a reserve side, and games sometimes being under-18s against a squad of seniors. It should be mentioned that in the SFA report they do talk about the success of BT models in other countries, but they know that implementing that here would be borderline suicidal. Instead, the SFA had a look at reforming the loan market. Clubs complained that in the current system, players couldn't be recalled if the loan has been deemed detrimental to their development. Players couldn't be sent out on loan due to homegrown quotas in European competitions, or due to small squad sizes, or lack of finances when it comes to paying wages or fees for lower league sides. This is where the new cooperation agreement comes in. Clubs from the Premiership and Championship are able to sign agreements with one club from each division below them, which will see Scottish under-20s move freely between the two clubs. Let's use one of the agreements in place already as an example. Rangers have an agreement with Raith Rovers, so for obvious reasons I'll use that one. Let's say Rangers want Bailey Rice to get some game time. Raith can have him on loan with no cost. If Rangers have an injury crisis in October, Rangers can call him back, and then 2 weeks later, when there is no longer a crisis, he can return to Raith. It gives him game time, the lower division team gets an extra player, it's a win-win, supposedly. Although, with how the season has started, I'm not entirely sure if I want any Rangers players. These loans also don't count towards the current loan restrictions of 6 players from other SPFL clubs, so it allows clubs to continue their transfer market as normal. The SFA mentions how this is used in some other countries, with Belgium being an example mentioned. I'd like to thank the Belgian Football Podcast for their help in this part, so shout out them. But how the Belgian system works is that clubs in the top flight are required to name a minimum of 6 under-23 players in matchday squads. These players must be homegrown and been trained at a Belgian club for a minimum of 3 years. In order to foster youth development in the Challenger Pro League, the division below the top flight in Belgium, clubs are required to field at least 4 players under the age of 23. Provided players are registered properly, senior sides can send as many players as they want to development sides in the Challenger Pro Leagues. Of course, it should be noted that Belgium does have B teams in the second tier, so this new loan system is seen as a middle ground compromise sort of system. Now, it should be noted that Belgium has a minimum requirement for young players, while Scotland does not. This is something that the SFA do mention in the document and something I mentioned in a video a year ago. But whilst the SFA agrees that some sort of domestic player rule should be introduced, it would be difficult for clubs at a Premiership level to approve. They do, however, believe cup competitions could be a way to trial this. As mentioned in a previous video, the Polish Cup has a rule where there must be an under-21 Polish player on the pitch at all times, which I wouldn't mind being implemented. Obviously, with it being a Scottish player, not a Polish player. A major issue that hasn't been mentioned yet, however, is a big money bag-shaped monster that casts a shadow over us. England. Since Brexit, English clubs haven't been able to fill their academies with players from all corners of the globe in some weird footballing British Empire recreation. What this has meant is that with a talent pool restricted to just the UK, any player with a hint of talent is quickly snapped up by English clubs. This means that even if a club wants to develop a player for the first team, due to contract rules, an English club can snap them up the moment they turn 16. Whilst there have been some success stories such as Ben Doak and Billy Gilmore, there are countless players who have fallen into the void of English academies. Whilst the pathway from academy to first team is equally as difficult in England, the vast amount of money isn't just put into player contracts, but also facilities. The report says that lack of access to facilities, including indoor facilities, have been an issue, even at the top end. This limits the time that young players can train for, with indoor facilities also providing futsal sessions which are pivotal in improving technical skills. There is also a lack of gym space, meaning players aren't physically ready for senior football, quality of pitches and coaching are apparently substandard, and a lack of long-term planning in regards to developing and selling players is also listed. Referring back to Belgium, it's not uncommon for players from Club Brugge, Anderlecht, Genk, etc. to make moves to other European leagues for a decent bit of money, and those funds are then put back into the system and the cycle repeats itself. The only club that seems to be doing something similar is Motherwell, who have sold Bailey Rice and Lennon Miller in recent windows, but have been putting the money back into facilities to keep the conveyor belt going. Other clubs such as Celtic, Aberdeen, Hearts and Hibs do have a player trading model going, but they're doing it with bargains from abroad and not with youth players, which is what the SFA wants to change. Rangers, meanwhile, seemingly don't have a strategy. So, will these reforms work? I think they will, to an extent. The Challenge Cup reforms, as terrible as they may be for lower league fans such as myself, will give young players at Premiership clubs more experience against senior opposition. The cooperation agreements will allow players to move with next to no risk for parent clubs, which again gives young players greater opportunities for game time. Where the issue lies, however, is the lack of requirements for Premiership clubs to play these players. This is the last great barrier, and again, as mentioned, the countries the SFA are looking at emulating have these requirements. Celtic didn't start a single youngster in their game against Buckie Thistle in the Scottish Cup a few years ago, a team who play at the same level as their B team. So clearly, they need to be forced into it if we're going to see any meaningful change. If this was to come into place, it would help strengthen the pipeline from academy to first team and be used as a carrot on a stick to stop players moving down to England. Although, I don't blame players for going down for a bit more money, it's just an unfortunate fact of life. These changes will take time, however, so it's worth giving it a go before we decide to scrap it. I should add that a concern about this being a gateway for B teams to enter the SPFL is unfounded, as the SFA themselves know this is unpopular. I, however, would not be entirely against them being in the SPFL under a very specific set of circumstances. As mentioned, Belgium has B teams playing in their second tier along with Austria and many other countries in Europe. The difference is, though, that there's typically 3 or 4 of these teams in a 16-team league, or 17-team league in Belgium's case, because of course the Belgians are weird like that. Our leagues, meanwhile, have only 10 teams, and progression is far more limited into these leagues. If we were to change the leagues into leagues of 16, for example, I could see the idea of allowing B teams to the 3rd tier at most to be a bit more palatable, although still unpopular, as it would be 1 of 16 rather than 1 of 10. It would allow young players to play at a higher level than they currently are, but again, I completely understand anyone who supports a lower league side telling me I'm a maniac in the comments. Maybe you just really want league reconstruction. That's all for this video, and of course, I hope you enjoyed. How would you fix the young player issue? Should we bring in player quotas? Do we allow B teams to rise higher up the pyramid? Let us know in the comments below. Channel memberships are available with current members on screen now. Of course, liking, sharing and subscribing are all appreciated, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.